The Kagerō-class was a larger and more advanced evolution of the earlier Oyashio-class destroyers. Each vessel carried a complement of 240 officers and crew. They had an overall length of 118.5 meters, or 388 feet 9 inches, a beam of 10.8 meters or 35 feet 5 inches, and a draft of 3.76 meters or 12 feet 4 inches. Their displacement reached 2,065 metric tons under standard load and 2,529 metric tons when fully loaded. Propulsion was provided by a pair of Kampen-geared steam turbines, each connected to a single propeller shaft and powered by steam from 3 compound water tube boilers. These turbines delivered 52,000 shaft horsepower, enabling a planned top speed of 35 knots. In practice, they achieved speeds exceeding 35.5 knots during trials. Although designed for a cruising range of 5,000 nautical miles at 18 knots, sea trials revealed a greater range of 6,053 nautical miles. The primary armament of the Kagero-class included 6 Type 3, 5-inch guns arranged in 3 twin turrets. 1 turret was positioned forward of the superstructure, and 2 were mounted aft in a super-firing configuration. For anti-aircraft defense, they were originally equipped with 4 Type 96 1-inch guns in 2 twin mounts, though additional guns were fitted as the war progressed. Each destroyer was also outfitted with 8 24-inch torpedo tubes for the powerful oxygen-propelled Type 93 long-lance torpedoes, mounted in 2 quadruple rotating launchers. Each tube had 1 spare torpedo for reloading. Anti-submarine weaponry included a loadout of 18 to 36 depth charges. Shiranui, meaning phosphorescent light, was the second ship to enter service among the 19 Kagero-class destroyers constructed for the Imperial Japanese Navy during the late 1930s as part of the Circle 3 Supplementary Naval Expansion Plan, known as Maru-san Keikaku. At the time of the Pearl Harbor attack, Shiranui served as the flagship of Destroyer Division 18, comprising Shiranui, Kagero, Kasumi, and Arare, under Captain Miyasaka Yoshito. She was part of Destroyer Squadron 2 within the Imperial Japanese Navy's Second Fleet and had sailed from Itorafu in the Kuroshio Islands as an escort for Admiral Nagumo's Carrier Strike Force, which executed the assault on Pearl Harbor. The operation, carried out entirely by carrier-based aircraft, resulted in the sinking or damaging of 20 vessels, including several battleships. Shiranui had no active combat role during the attack and returned to Kure on the 24th of December. In January 1942, Shiranui escorted the aircraft carriers Shokaku and Zuikaku to Truk, and from there proceeded to Rabaul to support Japanese landings at Rabaul, Kavieng, and Salamaua. In February, she continued escort duties during the Japanese carrier-led bombing of Darwin, after which she was stationed at Staring Bay in Sulawesi, Netherlands East Indies, to conduct patrols south of Java. On March 1st, while patrolling with the rest of Destroyer Division 18, a Japanese float plane spotted the 8,806-ton Dutch freighter Mojokerto, prompting Destroyer Squadron 2 to pursue the target. They located the freighter and, in a brief but devastating engagement, Shiranui, Kagero, Kasumi, Isakaze, Ariake, and Yugure opened fire and sank Mojokerto within just 3 minutes. Shiranui departed Staring Bay on March 27th to escort the carrier group during the Indian Ocean raid in early April. Following the Japanese air attacks on Colombo and Trincomalee in Ceylon, which resulted in the sinking of a light carrier, 2 heavy cruisers, 2 destroyers, a corvette, and 3 merchant ships, she joined the fleet dispatched to hunt down the American carriers behind the Doolittle raid. but was recalled to the Kure Naval Arsenal for repairs on April 23. On June 3, she departed Saipan as part of the escort for the troop convoy during the Battle of Midway, but withdrew after Japan's catastrophic defeat, which saw 4 carriers and a heavy cruiser sunk. In the aftermath, she escorted the cruisers Kumano and Suzuya from Truk back to Kure. On June 28, she was assigned to escort the carrier Chiyoda on a supply run to Kiska in the Aleutian Islands. On July 5, just beyond the gray waters of Kiska Harbor, Shiranui, Arare, and Kasumi cruised unaware into a silent gauntlet. Lurking below the waves was the American submarine USS Growler, stalking its prey with cold precision. Without warning, Growler unleashed a spread of 4 torpedoes and surfaced slowly to watch the chaos unfold. What followed was carnage. In an instant, a torpedo tore into Arare. A thunderous eruption split her in 2, flames erupting skyward as her shattered remains vanished beneath the sea, taking 104 men with her. Moments later, another torpedo smashed into Kasumi's bow. Her forward magazines ignited in a blinding explosion that sheared the entire front of the ship clean off. Then came the third strike. Shiranui, frozen in horror, watched as the final torpedo in the trio slammed just ahead of her forward funnel. The detonation was cataclysmic. 3 of her 4 engine rooms were instantly flooded. Her keel cracked open like a broken spine, and the entire forward third of the ship, bridge, turret 1, and bow, was ripped from her body and swallowed by the sea. Miraculously, only 3 crewmen perished in the blast, but the ship was mortally wounded. The 4th and final torpedo knifed through the water, narrowly missing the crippled Shiranui, nearly colliding with the maimed Kasumi, and then vanished into the deep. Convinced it had destroyed 2 destroyers and left a 3rd dead in the water, Growler turned away and vanished beneath the waves, slipping into the void before a counterattack could come. The battered and broken Shiranui, her forward third torn away and her engines drowned, drifted helplessly in the cold northern waters, powerless, bleeding steam, and on the verge of final collapse. Her survival seemed impossible, but fortune intervened. The destroyer Naganami appeared through the mist and lashed tow lines to her ruined hull, dragging the crippled vessel back to Kiska Harbor at a crawl, while Ikazuchi did the same for the shattered Kasumi. The devastation was so complete that Destroyer Division 18 was officially dissolved, with Kagero reassigned to Division 15. After makeshift repairs barely stabilized her, Shiranui was once again towed, this time across the sea to the Maizuru Naval Arsenal, where she was immediately dry-docked for a long and grueling reconstruction. On September 17th, naval officials meticulously documented the carnage, images that revealed the full extent of her near-death experience. The damage was so catastrophic that she remained under repair for over a year, until November 15, 1943. In the process, her ruined X-turret was removed and replaced with 2 triple-mount Type 96 25mm anti-aircraft guns, more a symbol of the ship's new purpose than her old firepower. Shiranui was assigned to the IJN 9th Fleet, and during January and February 1944, escorted transport convoys to Palau, Wewak, and Hollandia. On March 1st, she was reassigned to the IJN 5th Fleet and sent to northern waters, where she conducted patrols out of the Ominado Guard District in April, later returning to Kure, alongside the cruisers Nachi and Ashigara at the beginning of August. During the Battle of Leyte Gulf on the 24th and 25th of October 1944, Shiranui served in Vice Admiral Shoji Nishimura's diversionary force during the Battle of Surigao Strait, where she launched torpedoes at the American fleet without scoring any hits, later helping to repel attacking PT boats using her main guns. Following the battle, she departed from Koron to search for the missing cruiser Kinu and destroyer Uranami, and rescued survivors from the destroyer Hayashimo. When Shiranui arrived at the reported coordinates of Kinu and Uranami, she spent 4 fruitless hours scouring the area for any sign of wreckage or survivors, but found nothing. Unbeknownst to her, by the time she reached the site, the survivors from both ships had already been picked up and were en route to Manila, rendering her mission unnecessary. Yet that 4-hour delay would prove fatal. As she began to withdraw, having accomplished nothing, aircraft from the carrier Essex appeared overhead. They had just sunk the destroyer Fujinami along with all hands, including the surviving crew of Chokai, whom Fujinami had rescued after scuttling the cruiser 2 days earlier. Although likely already overloaded, Fujinami had been ordered to assist another destroyer, Hayashimo, stranded after grounding on an island. But now Hayashimo's crew could do nothing but watch in horror as their rescuers were incinerated and strafed by American aircraft. Fujinami's captain, remembered for his rare humanitarianism among IJN officers, he had once forbidden shooting at American survivors, had sought to save lives only to lose his own and hundreds more in the attempt. About an hour later, Shiranui arrived on the scene, again narrowly missing a chance to help, but immediately prepared to launch boats to search for survivors and aid Hayashimo. But Fujinami's grim fate repeated itself soon after. This time it was aircraft from Enterprise that swooped down on Shiranui. She was struck 3 times and quickly sank bow first with no survivors, while the men of Hayashimo once more watched, powerless, as another crew was annihilated while trying to rescue them. The roughly 150 survivors of Hayashimo would remain marooned for weeks until a float plane from Nachi, searching for Shiranui on November 1st, finally discovered them. Shiranui was officially struck from the Imperial Japanese Navy list on the 10th of December, 1944.